Welcome one. Welcome all. We have the race at Texas today, but that isn't the only thing on the calendar. No. We have a game 7 later tonight. We have a loaded MLB slate as always on these Sundays. We have an F1 race at 3 or 4 p.m. Then we also have the NASCAR race here at around 3:30. So tons of sports today. I'm sure I missed even the final round of the PGA and everything else in between. But luckily, Stats and I are back for this week. Stats, it's been a little bit of a minute since we've done a free show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Yeah, like you said, it's gonna be busy. So we'll bang this show out. We'll get our NASCAR lineups in. Or you got a little bit of time. We got to about 3:30 before we get those lineups in. So get your MLB lineups in. I think that's probably going to be the first one up after we finish with the show. And it should be a nice full day of sports and degenning out. We got plenty of bets to make and plenty of DFS.
Plenty of that. And we also get Uncle T saying, good morning, gentlemen, and MLBS smashing. He would know he has been at the top multiple times already this season, and as well in golf. Hopefully we got some sweats there. I know Scotty Scheffler ran away with the tournament on Friday and since has not looked back. Stats, Texas, we'll probably move through the show pretty quick because we got a ton of content to get through. But this race here, yesterday, the Xfinity race, provided quite a bit of action. There was a lot of drama in there. Chris Wright not getting out of Justin Allgaier's way. I mean, that was incredible itself. Kyle Larson coming in, doing his thing as usual. But then all of a sudden you look at this practice yesterday and you have some comments from like Joey Logano and stuff saying just passing is just incredibly difficult in this, obviously the next gen car. Ryan Blaney's pretty quick, but how fast can you move up from 24th, right? You have the Hendrick cars up top. You have Hocevar on pole. What are you expecting from this race? And it feels like, we got some top hitters up top, but are they going to be even able to make the moves to get up to the lead?
Yeah, I mean, what are we expecting? We're expecting a lot of cautions. So anticipate that. And it's not just wrecks. I think you saw it with the Xfinity yesterday. I saw it with the trucks too. You're going to have an issue on the top group. So you can't run high here because it's really slick. So you saw it yesterday. I forget which guys it was, but if you ran outside of where it's kind of grooved, which is on the lower end of the track, you have a real good chance of spinning out. So we saw guys just spin out, not necessarily hitting the wall, not necessarily wrecking, but causing a lot of cautions. And when we get a lot of cautions, especially late in the race, that kind of opens it up to a lot of different guys. So we could get out, see guys get a big lead, 4, 5, 6 second lead, and then that all changes. So as far as race winner, it could be an exciting finish. I think a lot of people don't necessarily like this track because of the fact that we are going to have difficulty passing, because if we only have one groove to really race in, makes it real difficult to pass. So we're going to need, it's going to take really good car and a good driver here to get to move up. Also, I think pit strategy and your pit, just your pit crew in general, going to be really, really important. So we could see guys in both directions here kind of move up dramatically if they make the right pit strategies. With all these cautions, getting caught pitting at the wrong time, that could also become a big factor. And we could get lapped down here really easily. Some of these guys starting in the back. If things don't break properly, we get a poor pit stop, anything like that, you get yourself lapped down, and then we're in trouble. So a lot of different things can happen here. We could get some because of all the not necessarily wrecks, cautions, let's say, but could turn into wrecks. We could get some big wrecks here with anyone trying to make passes where it's a little bit more slick. We could see some of these drivers who are maybe lower price starting in the back, maybe be able to move up in position just for the sheer fact that we may get some chaos in front of them. So dominator points going to be hugely important. I mentioned a few times now, it's going to be tough to pass. So that means these guys starting up front, we've got to look at really, really closely, because whoever gets out front early, clean air, also a huge factor here in Texas. If you get out early in the clean air, you should be able to accumulate a bunch of Dom points. So we need at least one Dom here. We're probably going to have two that are going to chew up a bunch of the Dom points. So we're looking for some early Dom. And then these guys in the back, can they get up to the front and maybe dominate this race late? So should be interesting. I think we've got a few different ways that we could go. I've got bets up already. I don't know if you saw that over in the over in our Discord, the bet channel. So those have been doing really well so far this year. I got them up a little early today. So we've got bets in there. We've got a lot going on, and it could potentially be an exciting race, but we'll see. It won't be a lot of excitement mid-race. We could get some excitement at the end of the race with some wrecking and cautions and things like that. But we won't. I don't think we're going to see a lot of jockeying back and forth most of this race for the top position. It's going to come down right to the end, and we'll probably get a late caution that's going to decide this thing.
Yeah, thank you, Stats, for that breakdown there. Yeah, late caution. That is definitely the NASCAR way at this moment, it feels, right? I just feel like almost every race. I will say that Talladega one they did ultimately. I'm not going to say a good job because I didn't like the racing. I actually fell asleep during it because there was just no action there. But I could just see a late caution as well. And I want to say, so we had this race, what was it, back in 2023? It was just the one that Byron won, and then last year you had another Hendrick driver win.
Elliott won. Yeah, right? Elliott won last year, yeah.
So we had you have back-to-back Hendrick wins at this track. You also had Chastain getting second. It looks like Trackhouse runs really well here if you're just using year-over-year history, which you don't want to do completely, but we do have a lot of data that can suggest, if a team figures out a setup one year in the same car, they're going to probably run it again. Kind of brings me to this point here. So Stats, like we have, the studs region, right? Which is 9K and above is what we kind of label it out as in the playbook. And the first thing that you're going to notice is what the top three usual, right? Kyle Larson, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, right? All three of those guys are going to be fine. I think Hamlin's going to be probably the odd man out without a doubt, right? You say dominator points are hugely important. That is very true. You have Larson and Byron. Those are, I think, the two favorites in this race, right? Yeah, so plus 300 for Larson to get the win, plus 600 for Byron to get the win. Byron, I mean, he's got the ability to kind of get the lead on the first lap potentially, but you said it best too, like the top groove. It's going to be tough for him to get around Hocevar, especially in the first lap. And then if he doesn't get around Hocevar, he's always going to have Larson breathing down his neck right away. To kind of finish out this range, though, you have Chase Elliott starting 29th. You have great PD plays here, right? Joey Logano starting 27th. Ryan Blaney, who was arguably the fastest in practice, overall, starting 24th. Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell. I mean, those guys starting in the double digits. Chase Briscoe as well. Like, there isn't a single bad play here. And I think you could argue that Denny Hamlin is the worst play among the studs. And even then, I mean, that's never a terrible thing if you're clicking Hamlin's name. So Stats, like with that in mind, I mean, you mentioned it. You could have some guys in the back, specifically my favorite, SVG, who already made my lineup. But like, you almost want to get multiple of these studs, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will be doing that. I agree with you on the Denny Hamlin. Probably going to be the lowest owned out of those guys at the 10K and higher price range. But, interestingly, one of the best correlated tracks in DFS to Texas is Darlington. And we saw Denny win in Darlington this year. He's been really, really good at the mile-and-a-half tracks. I mean, just a ton of top tens here in the last in his last, let's say, almost 10 races, I think almost all of them have been top tens outside of maybe one or two. So he's a top 10 machine, but I don't know if top 10 is going to necessarily get it done here for a 10-5 price tag. We're going to need some Dom points with him starting in that 8th position. That's why the 16%, 15% ownership level. I'm not sure we have him on Sabre. That's going to be, suppressing his ownership for sure. But I think you're looking at like double the ownership probably on a Byron or a Larson. Now, when you look at Larson, I mentioned the top, the outside line there is going to be it's more slick. Larson's the type of guy, we love him when we get to run him up against the wall, right? Nobody does that better. So we've seen from Larson, I mean, he's either been really, really good or the last couple of trips out here, not so good at this track, and really very similar when we look at Darlington. His last 3 times out at Darlington, two of those races didn't finish, and then he had one in the top 5. So he's very much going to be an all or nothing type of play, I think, here. So I can see the logic in if you say, you know what, I'm going to fade Larson because I think we got some really solid options. Byron being one of them. I do like Byron in this race. Certainly as a pivot off of Larson. Starting second, like you said, though, it's going to be real tough. We've got to get these early Dom points with one of these guys who are starting up near the top. And Byron's going to be starting on that front row with Hocevar. Hocevar was the fastest guy in practice. He looked real good in practice, and he's the type of guy who is aggressive. And so this is the type of track that I like a Hocevar on. I think Hocevar's got a shot to even win this race. So I think actually Hocevar is probably going to be maybe a little low owned. I know we didn't get down to that level yet, but I think he's going to be low owned just because he's starting first. And I think he's got a shot to take a lot of these early Dom points. But that ties into, because we're looking at Larson, we're looking at Byron, those guys who have to get the early Dom points, you would think, with a really strong finish, probably a first place finish, maybe in the case of Byron. So we're looking for Dom points, at least the top three, and maybe Hocevar steals those Dom points. So you can make a case for even Larson and Byron not making your lineups. But then we go down to Blaney, who I think is probably the best option in the entire race. Starts 24th. He's probably been, you can make the argument he's been the best car all year. We've just had a lot of some wacky scenarios. Engine just fails on him. They've had problems in the pit, which is going to be an issue today, even though they have addressed that. So maybe they've gotten better in the pits. But I think you're going to have to be strong in the pits today, because we're not going to be able to pick up a lot of track position out on the track. So picking that up in the pits, and that's another plus, by the way, for Denny Hamlin. He will pick up spots in the pit. They're really good at that, and his strategy is usually on point. So that gives a guy like Hamlin a boost. But I think Blaney hopefully has addressed a lot of the issues they've had in the pits. But I think that's really going to be the only problem you're gonna face with Blaney. I think he's an absolute cash lineups, absolute must play, and I think he's the strongest play on the board here for this entire slate. So that's I think we've got a few different ways we could go. We didn't even mention Reddick, who's another really strong play here, and Reddick has won this race back in 2022. I think we've got multiple ways to go if we want to kind of looking for some leverage. Maybe get in there with Hamlin. I think a lot of your lineups are going to want almost two of these guys, and I think you could play some cheap guys with them, and we'll get to those cheaper options. And like I said, there might be some cheap options that just kind of luck their way into moving up 5-6 spots, and they're good enough because these guys at the top are going to have to dominate. So if we get just two of these 10K plus guys, take all the Dom points, we very well may need a couple of these 6K to 5K guys.
Yep, absolutely. Stats. And I was building my preliminary lineup and stuff. The first thing I did is like, oh man, you got so much PD. Then you go down to the bottom of the list, and you're like, well, you can play SVG. I mean, hell, Jesse Love's not a terrible click. It's like starting 35th. You have Gilliland starting 32nd and stuff. You have a lot of options below 6K that we'll get to here in a few minutes. But really, as stars and scrubs, I mean, you have to look at it. I mean, I think if you're doing a 20 max, you're going to have to make some difficult decisions, right? Especially in the studs ranges. Can't play everyone on a 20 max. And I'm staring at probably a Hamlin fade, right? Even though I don't think he'll be 4% owned, and I think it'll be probably in between 10 and 15.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think Hocevar, I mean, we can go ahead and talk about Hocevar now, because we're going to talk about him in a second, and we'll segue this kind of in between, because if you're not playing Hocevar, you almost really need one of those Hendrick drivers up top, right? Because that's got to be the strategy, because in reality, I mean, you could get an early caution. I mean, that'd be your hope almost. So it would have to be your hope. But in reality, I mean, you're almost saying goodbye to any stage one dominator points if that's the case, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I think it's tough when you're hand building here. I mean, you got to kind of play out what the early is going to look like. And yeah, if we get a Hocevar out there, it's going to be tough to pass him up, in the clean air. So if he's taking a lot of these early Dom points away from a Byron, away from a Larson, it's going to be difficult to maybe want to play these guys together. Now, at 7,400 with a Hocevar, you could get away with it, and certainly Byron or Larson can lead a ton of late laps. So we could play them together, but I think a lot of people are going to either go with Hocevar to get the early laps led, Larson or Byron. I don't know if you're going to see a lot of lineups playing all of those guys together. And maybe that's a way we could differentiate a little bit, because I think more so Larson and Byron. I think Hocevar's got a shot to win the race as well, by the way. But I think more so, obviously the chalk and the pedigree of Larson and Byron here, either one of those guys can lead. We could get a Hocevar lead pretty much all of stage one. Strong finish, he'll be in the winner, and then a Larson or a Byron dominates the second half of this race, and they're in the winner as well. So it can happen. I wouldn't necessarily totally avoid playing them together, but I think a lot of people may.
Yeah, so stats. This like kind of goes into roster construction when you just think about it that way, right? You mentioned Blaney being the best player, and you're exactly right. I'm in complete agreement with you that he's probably had the best car and just does not have any results to show for it because his engine will blow up in a few of those races. And uh, when you build out with Hocevar at 7,400, and you're like, look, I want PD. I think Hocevar, leads the first half of this race potentially. Hell, it even wins it, like you're saying, which I'd be very impressed. So, yes, but he's got great odds. I mean, 18-1 is nothing to joke about. I mean, that's better odds than Joey Logano, Chase Briscoe, anyone else in that 7 to 8K range too. So it's like he's got like the 10th or 8th best odds even on this slate to win the race, and not something that you want to scoff at all. And you make a great point too. If you're just doing roster construction, you play host for. I mean, your PD options open up the board, and we don't usually talk cash on this show, but I'm curious to see what our guy Third and Schlong does. I wonder if he'll click host first. I think you almost have to, right? Like I know that. Well,
I don't know if I want to play him in cash. It's tricky
because you do got Keselowski there. You do got Priest. You have the RFK cars in that same range, right? So yeah, you don't really need Chastain. You got too much PD to do host for. You're right. Because at the end of the day, even if you led 40 laps and somehow ended up falling to 15th, maybe you got loose like on a stretch or something like that, it kind of puts him at a good position, but not one that you have to have and risk it for an aggressive driver like that.
Yeah, I don't play a lot of cash. I usually confer with which we'll go over it together. He'll DM me and see what I like. But yeah, this is a tricky one because I think you want to play mostly PD here, but there's going to be one Dom at least that is going to be a must-have even in cash. Like someone's going to score 100 plus points here, and with all the Dom points that they get, and if you don't have them in the cash, you're probably not going to cash those lineups either. So you're probably in cash maybe one of these really strong Dom plays, and then everyone else maybe more place differential. The only way, unless you get like a Blaney who just gets up somehow, finds his way up to the top fairly early in this race and then dominates from that point on, or an Elliott or someone like that. But barring that, you're probably going to need one of these guys starting up front to get you those Dom points, and then maybe 4 or 5 place differential guys in a cash lineup.
I feel like with host for too, like you can play another guy in the top 10 if you want, but really, I mean, you can just stick with like just jamming these PD plays in and have a really good lineup.
Yep.
It could be a little bit chalky, so I don't want to get like too carried away with it, but maybe have one other play under 20% or under 15%, which, in trucks and Xfinity stats, it's getting increasingly hard to find any differentiating between. You have to make like a really suboptimal pivot nowadays to even get like a one off the winner, or you have to come up with something completely off the grid for single entry, because this is where I'm kind of building optimal lineups rather than building DFS lineups, and I've fallen into that trap of duping myself, duping a lot of others. And
Bryce had a solo yesterday with like 3 or 4 to go, and then we had that late caution, whatever it was. So, and that was it was a solo lineup. I forget what the lineup was, but yeah.
Damn, I know that late caution there too. You had a bunch of stuff going wrong yesterday. Josh Williams driving straight into the grass. I am 0 for life on Josh Williams in the Xfinity series. And the best part is, you play Xfinity, you got your friends that you talk to and stuff. I was so adamant about not playing Josh Williams, and sure enough, I folded. And then he finds the grass and goes straight into the wall. That was funny watching the Xfinity drivers follow one after another straight into that grass, and only Josh Williams wrecked. But yeah, I mean, we can move on to the mid-range here. This is going to be another crowded mid-range. I think like me, I love my craps references. I have not rolled the 7s on Kyle Busch yet. He is starting 26th. There is plenty of PD, but when you really look at it, it's like I want him to beat me first before I go back to him. Like, I think a lot of people are going to have that sentiment too, but starting 26th, I don't think he's going to be completely low owned, right? I think he'll actually get some ownership. He's got some good history here as always. But I think it was the top 10 here last year that could push it just a little bit up, but I'd rather get like a Chase Elliott just above him at 9K, right? You have Chastain here at 8,200. Trackhouse has had some good results here over the past couple of years. I like Chastain at 3,100. 8,200 is a very soft tag. He should be owned. I would say he'd be arguably the highest in this range. I mean, 40% he could be higher owned than Hosvar, just straight up. I'm going to be curious about that. I think, yeah, Hosvar, what do you think? 30%, I would say.
On Hocevar,
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking like 25 to 30. Maybe I'm a little, maybe I'm low, but yeah, I was thinking down there. The 40% that Sabres got at 45%, I think is just way too high. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe closer to 30%.
Yeah, and that's the case too. Like I'm really debating it right now. Stats, you got my brain thinking that. I think I'm going to jam in host for today, and I wasn't expecting to completely do that on the way into the show. So it should be a good time on a single entry.
He's a guy who likes to just kind of put the gas,
yeah.
put the pedal down and like, so if he gets out front, he gets the he gets to ride that groove that that's got a little stickiness to it, and no one can pass him. I mean, he could just, anyone who gets out front really can just accumulate a lot of laps, and obviously the most likely one to do that is the guy on the pole. So you never know.
He's a good driver. I mean, like, look, I understand he can get under people's skin. I understand that he can be overly aggressive, but he's just really good too. I mean, at the end of the day, you got talent or you don't, and he's got a bunch of it. And I think I'm going to go ahead and just follow your suit there on Hostfar. And like at the end of the day, too, like you can pair him up with like, not that I want Keselowski starting 30th and Priest. I mean, we're going to have an RFK conversation here. I mean, how many times can people play Keselowski in a row and not get paid dirt there? I understand the past couple of times have not been his fault. I don't think the past 2 times have even been his fault. And he was actually running pretty well. The ownership that Sabre has on Keselowski, 50%. Whew, I don't know. I don't think it'll get that high, but Priest also 35%. I think that's about right. You're going to have these guys starting 30th and 33rd that, I mean, they're decision points. I mean, I don't know if I want either of them stats, but man, they're good plays. What do you think?
But it's going to be, when people look at the Keselowski track history, it's going to be real tough to get off him. He has not finished outside the top 10 since 2019. Second place here last year. Now you look at Darlington, not very good. And that was, of course, this year. I think he wrecked out of that one. Didn't finish it. Had a 14th, but then, did have a first place 3 Darlington races ago. So when you look at the track history here, and if we just go back a little bit at Darlington with that win, and some recent form at the mile and a half hasn't been great, but obviously the history overall has been good. You're going to get decent. I don't know if we get 50% ownership, but 35 to 40, I don't think I don't think that's out of the question at all. I think that's probably where we get, maybe even we get over 40 starting at 30th with that kind of history. And at 7,600, it's gonna be tough not to play Kez here today.
Yeah, I mean, I might bite the bullet this time. I'm just debating it. But really, I mean, when you break down the slate like this too, it's just you have a lot of options, right? Chastain, you got Priest, you got Hosvar in this range, you got even the case for Kyle Busch, and then if you want to throw in the 9K guys like Chase Elliott stuff, like you're gonna have plenty of PD. I wouldn't be like overly cautious. I mean, we've talked about setting ownership maximums on your lineups before, and you're not a huge fan of it. I'm kind of with you too. But at the end of the day, it's like I wouldn't start a lineup with Blaney, Keselowski, Chase Elliott, like just jamming in like 3 guys and not getting at least a little bit different, right? Like if you're gonna do that, throw in a sub 10% guy and at the very minimum and try and get a little bit different that way. I know that they're going to be very optimal plays, but at what cost, at what point? And I try to tell myself this too, Stats, because I've been on a little bit of a cold spell the last week. It's just, I'm making optimal lineups. That's not the way to play DFS. The way to play DFS is to, use this ownership, use the game theory behind it, not just here are the 6 best players. And this is what I've been trapped in showdown. I know I've been one off of caching slates and stuff on my main lineup and stuff. But it's like every time I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, I don't get any difference maker in my lineup. And that's what you want. You just need at least one. And if you're going to start out very chalky, find someone who can at least be a winner. And I think Hosover could be that guy. If he's only going to come in at 30% stats, if he's even 25, like I really like that play, which is still kind of chalky. Don't get me wrong, but get yourself a little bit different off the field. Get yourself a little bit more unique. And those guys are all great plays. Priest is going to be a great play. I don't know if I would want to jam in like 150 to 200% ownership in my teams, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, NASCAR. If you played enough NASCAR, watched enough NASCAR, you realize that it is really hard to predict. It's why these place differential guys get so high owned, because that's like the one thing you could totally see happening is, you got a Chastain starting 31st. You're like, okay, well, he's one of the best cars here. He's at least a top 10 car. He's going to finish in the top 10. That's a gimme, right? And you look at it all, Keselowski, pretty much the same story. You look at a Chase Elliott. Well, I'll guarantee between Elliott, Chastain, and Keselowski, at least one of those guys is not going to be in the winner, right? It's why it's going to happen, I don't know, but that's just the way it works in NASCAR. You get a penalty in the pits, you wreck, you get mechanical issues, your tire blows out. I mean, whatever the case is, there's a lot of factors in NASCAR. And you take like a Kyle Larson. We were talking about Kyle Larson, and we're like, yeah, I mean, he's been the best driver probably on the planet for the last couple of years, but he's, you look at the last 2 years here, 21st and 31st. Right? We weren't expecting that. I don't remember what his ownership was in those two races. I'm sure it was fairly high, and he wasn't in your winner. So NASCAR, I agree. But I think where you have to look, at least in this race, is I think the differentiation will be taking maybe some of these 6K, even the 5K to that 5K to 6K range. There's going to be a lot of low owned there. And I think that's probably where someone's going to pop up. You're going to get a 7% owned someone at like, whatever price
SPG.
there. It could be SPG. It could very well be. And you'll get someone down there. That's typically, and I think where you'll see it here, because I mentioned earlier, I expect some of these guys who start in the back here will just out of sheer luck and attrition kind of find their way up. Even if they don't finish on the lead lap, if it gets really crazy, they may just move their way up here. You said, I know you like SVG. One of the cheapest guys on the entire slate, starts 37th. I mean, he's just got to stay clean. And if things break right and he finishes, he gets himself a 25th finish at 5K. If you pair him with the right guys up in that 10K range, you get all the Dom points, could easily make the winner and not going to be very owned. So I think that's where you get it more so than maybe looking for some of these other guys. We didn't talk about Ty Gibbs. I don't think we mentioned that. That's another fairly low owned driver here. Looked good the car looked good. Gibbs has been, he's got the pedigree. We always talk about him. I think he's an interesting choice. Now he starts, he starts 6, but is he a guy who could get out there and get some of these? No one's going to play him because of the 6th place starting position. People are scared off of him, but is he a driver here? And does he have the equipment with JGR to get up to the front and get us some Dom points at 8K? Is that the low owned guy that it's real hard to get onto him, but he's good in the betting markets.
My favorite part is like the full cycle through this show is we love them like going back to last year. So we loved them, absolutely loved them, fell out in love, said we're done with them. And now we're kind of coming back in this circle to where like, look, he's becoming good, right? Like if you look at it, I did say that once the 7 rolls up, I'll be open to playing it, right? Once I crap out, I'll be open to playing him. Well, you can count a 3rd place finish just crapping out. What was that? 2 weeks ago 2 weeks ago, he got 3rd place. Starting 6th, 50 fantasy points. He's only 8K here. I'm not going to hate on it like I usually do. All right. I know that the bit is I'm going to sit here and talk about craps for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to say he's a terrible play. No, he's an okay play stats. I don't mind it this time. 16-1 is not terrible in that car. I mean, it's just, it's Ty Gibbs still. I mean, but I'm open more to it this week than any other point during this season. Anyone else that you want to talk about in this range, your stats? I mean, can we just get your take on this, like PD galore, right? I know you talked about Kez's history. You also got Priest, Chastain, Busch. Like, what are you doing with like those 3 guys in particular, and anyone else you want to mention in the mid-tier?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a lot of Chastain here as well. I mean, the practice times were not good. I'm not going to get too hung up on that. He's got a second place finish here. Last year, I think he wrecked out, and then the year before was that second place finish. Darlington a seventh and fifth in his last two at Darlington. So I think it's tough to get off of Chastain starting this far back. So I think he'll be one of my most popular picks in my 150 builds for sure. Mentioned Keselowski. I think it's tough to get off of him as well, even with the maybe some of the recent form not looking as good as we'd like it to look. And you got Priest starting 33rd. I don't know, of the three, I probably would say Priest is my least favorite of these three. His practice times were not good either. Doesn't necessarily have as much of the track success and success at correlating tracks as maybe those other two guys. So I would say of the three that we expect to be really fairly high owned, Priest, Keselowski, and Chastain, I think Priest might be my least favorite of that entire group.
Yeah, Priest coming off a DQ last week, which after a second place finish on the DFS sheet, that's all that matters. But getting disqualified, it is just interesting. I mean, all those guys are going to be popular and stuff too. You can make some really good lineups and leave even a little bit of salary with some of these guys, right? Like I said, at least get yourself a different, a key differentiator. But I mean, there's some times where you just look at these lineups and stats, like you might not even need to dip into the 5K range for any cash lineups, even the 6K range for a cash lineup today. So you just got a ton of PD. I mean, all those guys are going to be good. My favorite would be Chastain, and you mentioned it too. Like, the comp tracks, Darlington being good, but also, recent finishes by Trackhouse at this track in particular. Practice times, slightly worrying, I think is the right word, right? Like it's a little bit worrying to see him, not have the same pace. But they also, I know, like I hate to compare it and stuff. It's like, in Formula One, the speed of the car, at certain times, right? Like if it's FP2, right? That's the one to kind of pay attention. That's how quick the cars are here. There's a decent chance the Trackhouse could have been trying something new during practice when they've already had success at similar tracks, and even here at this track in particular. So I think I'm completely okay with going Chastain today. I didn't land on Kyle Busch as much as I thought, as in these hand builds that I'm kind of cranking out right now. But as far as Keselowski and Priest, yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else to add in this mid-range. We're both going to be on Hostbar. It sounds like, you're obviously – Hostbar is going to be one of your top guys. I'm going to follow your footsteps there. I don't think Bubba, Bowman, I mean, all these guys, Barry, Gibbs for me, even Cindric, all those guys are kind of afterthoughts for me on this slate. But like you were saying, and like I was saying, it's just those guys, if you had one of those guys, that could be a key differentiator, right? Like we've seen Barry lead on tracks already this season before. We've seen, Ty Gibbs kind of turn around his form a little bit. We've seen Bubba Wallace even lead and stuff. So it's like, don't want to throw those guys out, especially if you're playing a bunch of chalk, in your lineup already. All right, stats. It's the value time. 34 minutes in, and we still have an MLB slate to go. So, luckily, MLB lock today was actually at a very kind time at 1:15. So it's not the worst thing in the world.
Hey, we've had 135s too, so let's not get too happy about the 115. But
yeah, you're right. You're right. Wait, it could be 135. I could be an idiot. No, it is 135.
Is it 135?
I don't know why I saw 115. Yeah, it's 135. I saw a 115 on the sports.
No, it's 115. It's 115 today for MLB. Yep.
Oh, it is? What?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I'm looking at the MLB website, and I guess I've scrolled over. I don't get it. All right. Anyway, let's go ahead and dig in on this value range here that we got. We got a bunch of, I would say, solid plays, but nothing that's incredible off the bat, right? If you were to make a cash lineup, I don't think you have to dip into the 7K range and below. What does that mean, though? It means that all these guys are going to be a little bit lower owned than, what you can expect. I think that tends to be the case, is if you can build a really strong cash lineup, a really strong floor lineup without having to dip into this range, those guys tend to be a little bit lower owned because no one wants to click on, a Todd Gilliland. No one wants to click on a Ricky Stenhouse because even though they're fine plays, 34th, 32nd, no one just has to do it. And when you look at this slate here, I mean, if people are going to be jamming in Byron and Larson, a lot of those teams are going to have one of these cheap guys here in this range, especially. Because, I would say that if someone's playing Byron Larson, they're probably playing Blaney or Elliott too. And all of a sudden they're kind of running slightly out of salary. So if you did somehow click one of these value plays and didn't have one of those top 2 drivers to your stats, I would think that combo is a little bit different already off the bat. But as far as individual drivers, we already talked about Chastain and Trackhouse success here. Daniel Suarez has also had some success here just last year in the 2024 race. This is something where he's starting 25th. It's not the sexiest play in the world, but I actually kind of dig it. I know that it's kind of a similar pivot off just Ryan Preece, and this kind of goes case in point where Preece is going to be, 40% potentially, and Suarez is going to be 20%, and I think that's about right. I think that's a really good tournament pivot, and I do think that Suarez has shown more, especially at this track. I know Preece has been just, probably better straight up this year, but we've seen Suarez have some really strong runs, and Trackhouse is not afraid to go against the grain a little bit with strategy, which I think matters quite a bit. And especially for DFS upside here at 6,900, I would be okay with clicking on Suarez's name. You got Gragson here, who never a bad click. And this is where it goes, where finishing position over PD, right? And when you're in this range, can the finishing position outweigh any of the PD here? I think your answer is going to be yes. And I think you're going to have interest in Gragson. I think you're going to have interest in, I don't want to speak for you, but like I feel like I could see like all of a sudden I'm looking at the top leaderboard. I'm like, well, there's Allmendinger in it, right? And someone even mentioned they bet like Allmendinger at plus 450 for a top 10. I think I want to get to that one, but it's like I can see that. Yeah, there it is. And I was like, if you can hold position here, I mean, you have a really good chance of outscoring plenty of these guys in this range. What are you doing with the values to your stats?
Yeah, I feel like maybe I'm a little transparent because, yeah, I think you're right, and in your anticipation of what I'm going to like here. But I think Suarez, again, I think that's a nice pivot off of Preece. And I think, all right, you're starting 8 places up, so he's got to make up that differential. But I think his finish position could easily do that. I think he potentially has a top 10 car here in Suarez. You've seen his last 4 trips here, 5th, 8th, 12th, and 10th. So I like the track history. I think you're just getting that lower ownership strictly because at $100 more, we got Preece up there, and I just like Suarez better. And he was really good early. It'll be interesting to see how that car works out today. You mentioned they've had success here in the past. Maybe they were just trying some new things in practice, but that car was really fast early in practice laps, and as they got up to like the 50 and 20 lap markers, that car did slow down. So we'll see if there's any adjustment there. You would like some long run speed, but I think Suarez is a really good play at the 6,900 price. You mentioned Gragson. This is one of the guys I think it's a smart play. When we were talking about where can we find some someone low owned here that's going to differentiate ourselves. I think Gragson's that type of guy. Again, aggressive driver. I think he'll he doesn't have a ton of experience necessarily at this track, and that experience has not the results haven't necessarily been there either. So we're going based on just talent and the starting position and the price. 18, kind of right in the middle. We're not going to see ownership here at all, and I think Gragson has a chance to really compete for a really strong finish. So I think Gragson becomes a sneaky option this week, and I do like him as one of the low owned drivers. You mentioned Allmendinger was I mean you're seeing the ownership on him, or at least some of the interest on him to win the race, and just because how fast they were in practice. This is the best car in practice. Starts 10th. It's going to need a lot, obviously, at that starting position, but at the 6,600, start 10th, finish in the top 10. We can certainly work for us. Again, not a lot of track history for Dinger, not necessarily what he specializes in at these 1.5 miles, but you definitely have to take note of those lightning fast practice laps that he had. He was the best in practice in the long on the 10, the 15, the 20 lap flags. So I think Allmendinger would be an interesting play. I think down here of these low owned, I'm looking at Gragson. I like Suarez is not going to be low owned relatively, 20 to 25%. I do like that. I don't think we got down to Stenhouse. I think Stenhouse is going to be another guy you're going to have to get in the mix. aggressive driver. I think we always talk about him being kind of a boomer bust guy. It's been mostly bust here at this track. He does have a top 10 2 years ago. Starting 34th, I think he's got to be in the discussion. I think the chances of him wrecking out of this are probably greater than him finishing top 10. But, at 6,200, he's going to fit in and make some of these top end plays a little bit more easy to squeeze in there. So I think you're going to want to have some Stenhouse in the mix for sure down here.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting range. It's really, I would say you could play at least one of these guys here and be very, very comfortable with how they're going to finish, right? Like you mentioned it with Gragson. Like I could easily see Gragson being in the top 15 at the end of this race, right? And if passing is going to be an issue, which probably is what it sounded like in practice. You talk about it only being like a one lane track, kind of. Look, I love SVG. I mean, the bit here is I always play SVG. It doesn't really pan out. Was optimal like 3 weeks ago. And don't forget that. Him and Ty Dillon were in the winner. But it kind of goes to the point where it's like, if I'm playing SVG, I'm praying for chaos. I know that there is no chance based on merit he will get 25th. It will take some wrecks. It will take, plenty of probably 6 or 7 cars go out of the race for him to even move up and stay ahead of, guys like Ware, Fincham, or whatever. The guys who can get there based on merit, Ty Dillon can be thrown in that range. Ty Dillon's been great this year. I mean, he's just been good. I don't really got anything else to add about that. But like Ty Dillon, every single week is not lapped in the first stage, is in it, and all of a sudden he's like 18th. He's at the bottom of the ticker because they show the first 20 cars, and you're always seeing Ty Dillon's name there at the bottom. Sometimes it fades to 21st, but then pops right back up to 20th. That's okay. That's more than okay at 5,100.
Yeah.
I think Ty Dillon should absolutely, be referenced here. And someone mentioned Jesse Love. I mean, look, Jesse Love is it's RCR car, right? Starting 35th. Like, yeah, I mean, Love's been a very, very solid young driver. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still his second start in the Cup Series. Right? So I think he raced. What was it? A couple weeks ago, even. I don't think he did Dega in the RCR car. He did the one a couple weeks ago. But in reality, it's like I'm very much okay with a guy like Jesse Love, who, yeah, he's got way more oval experience than a guy like Shane Van Gisbergen, which is crazy to say about someone so young. But it's like that's just the case in point there. But he doesn't offer the same stability in terms of finishing position, right? His is just more PD upside over a guy like SVG potentially, and the odds do indicate that. But just kind of rifling off some names here. You mentioned Dinger, you mentioned Gragson, both great clicks and stuff. I think Austin Dillon can be thrown into that at 19th, Ty Dillon at 23rd. Zane Smith, yeah, I think I could do that in large field, right? I think it would take there's been so many times where I just kind of dismiss Zane Smith, especially here in the Cup Series, and it's like, oh damn, like he's just been pretty solid, right? If you were to get like an 11th, or if you were to get like a top 15 where he holds position and stuff, it could be enough. I mean, I think I'd rather have Allmendinger or Gragson, but this kind of goes case in point to where if like Zane Smith got his first top 10 of the year, which not out of the picture. I mean, he had a couple top 10s last year and stuff. Yeah, I think it would be viable. I don't think I'd have interest in Justin Haley. Gilliland and Stenhouse were just fine PD plays. And then I think it kind of drops off to where after Gilliland, I don't think I would want Haley, Nemechek, Custer, or Herbst. I think I'd rather go to like a Love or a Ty Dillon, especially, and then a Shane Van Gisbergen here, which SVG, if I had 0 salary left, I'd keep him. If I had 100 or 200 left, I'd probably go with Ty Dillon and Jesse Love. And that's just the reality of it. I know that I always say that, how much I love SVG and stuff like that to play him. He is definitely not the best play in this range, though. Let me go ahead and just get this. It's starting with Byron and Larson. Crazy. Could see 2 of them leading the most laps. Michael, I think you'd be banking on is Byron getting the lead or Larson getting the lead early on in stage 1. And my thing is, if you're going to play 2 teammates, that is perfectly fine. I wouldn't play any other Doms outside of those 2. You do realize like that is loading up the 2 stud range, right? Is that almost like $22K in salary almost there, right? So it's like, I don't hate it. But you got to hope they get the lead early on, because there is a chance that Hendrick could just come out and dominate this race, pair him with Chase Elliott too. Then you'd play one Chiefy, and all of a sudden you got the rest of the world to kind of move through. But I don't hate it. Stats, are you okay with that?
I'm perfectly fine with it. Remember, so passing is going to be difficult. Where are we going to pass? We're going to pass in the pits. So you get a Byron comes out. Hocevar doesn't get the early lead. It's Byron. Byron leads a ton of laps. We stay we stay green for a while. They pit, whether it's the stage caution or we get a caution before that, and suddenly we get a Larson kind of moves up, or maybe 2 pits in, Larson moves up, and so easily both of those guys can dominate the entire race. So I have no problem playing both guys in lineups.
Perfect. Yeah. How many Lunchables are we going to eat today, Spencer? I haven't had a Lunchable in 2 months. Do I get the cravings? Maybe. But I do love my Lunchables, but I'm trying to cut out that type of food. I'm trying to cut out that very heavily processed. I only stick with my heavily processed energy drinks instead. What's the ingredients in this one here? I think, don't read them.
I can only imagine. I never drank them.
Just stuff I can't pronounce for the most part. I don't know what. I don't know what half the stuff in this Red Bull is. Byron top 3 plus 130. Book it. Damn, it's only plus 130 for a top 3. I do find that. Wow. Let's go ahead and get into our drivers of the day here, stats. And the rules, under 20% is what we are going for here. We don't want to give out the chalk because, look, it'd be easy to give away a Ryan Blaney. It'd be easy to give away a Chase Elliott. We don't want to do that for you. We want to kind of dig in deep. We want me to say SVG for the 3rd time this year. No, stats. Who is your driver of the day?
Let's go under the 20% number. I'm going to go with Gragson.
Oh, I love it. Noah Gragson showing. Okay, Saber has him a little bit too low.
Yeah, I got him way low. He won't be 4%, but he'll be under the 20 for sure.
He'll definitely be under the 20, and that's the thing. We got to come up with a punishment. If someone comes in the $15 at above 20%, we got to get like 20 push-ups live on air. One push-up for each percentage point. All right, at least something like that to give us a little bit of incentive to dig deep down, like you just did there. So you have no fear with Noah Gragson. As much as the people would love to see stats do some push-ups live on air with the background that he's got.
I'm back in the gym, man. I could probably do them now.
I like the word probably.
I could probably do them.
I am going to this is tough, stats. The worst part is when I prompt it and then I don't have my answer ready, so I have to stall a little bit. But why not? Why not do this, stats? If you really like one of Larson or Byron or potentially both, how many times in a row do I have to watch Ty Dillon kick my ass? All right. And I don't mean that even ironically and stuff. If you look at Ty Dillon's results here, and I know not every race is the same or whatever, but you don't have to worry about the stage 1 getting lapped and stuff. But he's got multiple top 20s this season. He's already got 3 top 20s, 4 top 20s this season. If he can put that into the top 20, I think he'll be in the winner. I think he does a really good job at pairing with Larson and Byron. Love it at the ownership here that we got. And I think it'll be a nice little stars and scrubs lineup that you could build with either of those guys, and even Gragson as a key differentiator off those place differential guys as well. All right. Stats over under 100 push-ups in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. That's an under.
That's an under?
Yeah, that's an under.
1 every 3 seconds. I got you, Stats.
I got too many there's too many joint injuries, too much pain involved in doing all, but I'm going to try it, and next week I'll let you know how many I did in 5 minutes. I'll give it a shot.
I'll say this, just do it on the show next week. Right?
Yeah.
It'd be great content.
I'm going to pass on that. But knee push-ups. Yeah, I could do. We don't call them girl push-ups anymore. Is that 2025? Just knee push-ups. But yeah, knee push-ups. I could bang out 100, no problem.
I cannot believe we have some Lunchable talk in the chat. I'm almost sad to say goodbye. Don't drink energy drinks. They tear up your heart valves because they make your heart constantly flex. We're in too deep, Jake. I should probably stop drinking Red Bulls though, for real. If they didn't taste so damn good, man. If they didn't taste,
there's nothing more than I hate is a Red Bull.
That is great, right there. Stats. Yeah. All right, guys. For Stats and for we appreciate y'all for watching. Have a great rest of y'all's day. And again, if it ain't one of us at the top of the leaderboard, we hope it's one of y'all. Have a good one, and bye-bye.